All right, and now I will hand it over to Judy to start us off with teaching us about powerful tools for caregivers.
Okay, and hopefully I'm going to share the right screen here. So can you see my screen? It says powerful tools? Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I just want to start off by saying this is probably one of my absolute favorite evidence-based programs, and it's because you physically can see the results in caregivers' faces throughout the course of the 6 weeks. You see them get that. I mean, first of all, it's extremely hard to have someone identify as a caregiver in the first place. And then when you can finally get them convinced to do that, and then come to one of these classes, they get it. They know they're not alone. You know, I remember the last class Amy and I actually taught. The gal, she thought she was coming to the class to learn how to be a better caregiver. And when she got there and realized it was about her, that was really foreign to her. But I think she took away so much stuff from that. It was really amazing. And that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love powerful tools. And I apologize, for some reason my printer decided to start doing something. Okay, so we talked about the leader training, and Rachel, you had given us some questions. If you do an in-person class leader training, we're looking at 2 full days, and it's a good full two full days. You lots of material to cover, teach backs, that sort of thing. They have started an online class leader training, which I personally have not led. Jenny, have you led an online leader training?
Yes, I've actually led 2 of them back last year in 2020.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I have not led an online one, but it's my understanding that it's 5 3-hour sessions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. A big thing with, as with some of the other evidence-based classes that Juniper offers, it does require 2 class leaders. And this is so important. I was thinking, matter of balance, you've got that other class leader there to make sure in case someone would fall. This is really there to watch your participants, just to see, how are they doing emotionally, because this is such an emotional class that people go through. So they do the roller coasters, and they go through so many different things. And so it's nice to have that that second leader there with you, just to kind of keep a pulse on how the class is going. When we do a leader training, our classes average between $150 and $200 per person. $100 of that goes directly to Powerful Tools. So when you're done with your class, you cut Powerful Tools a check or put on a credit card, or however you do it, right to them, and that covers all of the training materials and the registration for the leaders with Powerful Tools. They don't get any books or anything when they're at the training. They get all of that material direct from Powerful Tools after they are trained. So let me see. So when you become a Powerful Tools class leader, you agree to teach 2 classes in the first year. That's because they want you teaching things and doing it while it's fresh in their minds. So they want them to be able, you get done with class, you're all gung-ho and you're ready to go, and it's a good time to get out there. The classes do run for 6 weeks, for an hour and a half each week. It's depending on your area, depending on what time you like to do. We've always found that a morning, like a 10 to 11:30, tend to work out good for us, because folks could get their care receivers situated, get everything going, and then still be back before lunchtime. So it works out well. The desired size of the classes are 8 to 15 people. Now in our area, we have found that getting 8 people can be a struggle, because as for one, the mentioned that it's hard for people to even admit they're a caregiver to begin with. But it's not meant to be a one-to-one. We have done classes. I always figure if I'm up in Roseau, Minnesota, up at, out in the middle of total rural area, and if I can get 4 to 5 people, I'm happy. And I've spoke with Leslie at Powerful Tools about this before, and she still encourages a minimum of 8, and I understand, I think Juniper requires 8 registered folks. So it's just, if you have less, it's not as much conversation, And a big chunk of Powerful Tools is all about learning from the others in the class, as is with other evidence-based programs too. So, so that's why they really encourage 8 and no more than 15, because then you get almost too much interaction going on there. It's not meant to be a one-to-one, and I don't believe they've changed any of that with the online stuff, have they, Jenny? No, okay. So as we mentioned, you can deliver both in person or online. Zoom has become kind of the new world for everybody. Not everyone's comfortable, but if they are comfortable that way, I think I've also heard of some people who have maybe done where there's been 1 or 2 people in person and then other people online. I mean, you know, you can do a different combination that way also. For charging for the class, most providers we always encourage the leaders to try to get a sponsor. You know, sometimes churches will sponsor. We actually had a mental health employer up in Crookston. They provided an extra half hour at lunch for caregiver employees to take the class. And they bought their books, which I thought was really cool, because a lot of times employers don't understand that they have caregivers on their staff. So I would love to be able to get more employers to recognize that and to do that. But a lot of providers, the book can be $30, or if you download it, I see it's $25 if you download it online. So a lot of times providers will just charge the cost of the book just to cover their expenses if they have not been given the book by a AAA or by another sponsor, or however, you know, that type of thing. As I mentioned, you get a caregiver handbook. You want to be sure that if you're doing it in person, you want an atmosphere that's conducive to conversation. You know, and obviously you have to follow the COVID. I'm just kind of ignoring the COVID stuff right now, just as it, you know. But you want it so that it's a nice conversation setting, so people feel comfortable. You're going to need a whiteboard or some poster board, like the big post-it note type flip charts for some brainstorming that you're going to do. Kleenex, a box of Kleenex in the middle of the table is always a good idea, because like I said, it does really get to be emotional, and you never know what piece of it's going to trigger something for somebody. And then we had someone tell us one time, fidget items. So like the fidget spinners, dice, something for people to fidget with if they get nervous. So we put them in a basket in the middle of the table, and it works out really nice because people can relieve some of their nerves just by fidgeting with something, and so that really helps. And then snacks and beverages if you choose. Sometimes it's nice to have a coffee or water or something there for folks to have. A lot of times by the 3rd session, they've kind of bonded, and they've allowed, sometimes they want to come in and they'll say, hey, can I bring a pan of bars next week? Absolutely, bring a pan of bars. You know, we don't allow anyone new to the class after the second class. It gets to be too hard, and there's some confidentiality, and they said they start to feel comfortable with each other, so then they feel like more they can share. You see some people who at first are very quiet, don't want to share, but by that 3rd class, they're starting to feel like part of the group, and they open up a little bit more. And as they can open up, they tend to get, you know, they get more out of it as it goes. I think that is all that I had. Are there any questions? I mean, is everybody on the thing a trainer or a master trainer?
I know not all of the Juniper team members are,
Okay.
so that's why we wanted to learn more about the program. And we have our Juniper provider relationship managers like myself on this call that work directly with providers. Some of us have experience with Powerful Tools, some of us don't. We also have our Wellness Engagement Center, and they answer the Juniper 1-855 calls. And
Okay.
we also do outbound calls to Blue Cross Blue Shield MSHO members and referrals that we get. And so it's really helpful for them to know the more than just like the program this is how long it is, this is what you cover, but just really the heart of the program and what it speaks to and what it brings out in people, because that's really helpful for all of us in talking about
like
programs with people.
like I mentioned, it is truly one of my favorites, because I said you literally see the transformation as they gain confidence, and just knowing that they're not alone and that others are going through this. And so it's very near and dear to my heart. I love this program. I'm very excited you guys are offering it through Juniper. Yes. So Jenny, I will give it away to you.
Okay. Thank you, Judy. I'm going to share my screen and actually walk you through, once I get it, I'm just going to walk you through the 6-week classes just to have that better idea. Powerful Tools also allows the co-leaders to decide whether they want to do a 2.5-hour class or a 90-minute class. So there are a lot of options. There are also options for older adults, a specific class, and then a class for individuals working with youth. So there are multiple modes depending on what, I'm assuming Juniper would probably be Powerful Tools for older adults. It's the same evidence-based class, but sometimes the examples are different, especially when we are working with children. However, Powerful Tools did do a few years ago. They've merged the Caregiver Help Book into one book, sometimes using examples for children with a disability or for older adults. So their lifespan, which is also really, really nice. So for myself, when we provide a class, we actually do a 2-hour class. We say it's from 10 to noon, but we do the 90-minute curriculum to allow us more time to converse or go the full 2 hours, or have people really excited that we end and they have a free 20 minutes. We typically go the full 2 hours. Like Judy, we also probably we've done classes as small as 4 people, especially if we know that there's an immediate need with some of our participants, and have done it as large as 18, which was good, but it was a lot of work. And so we really we do stay around the 4 to 8 people for each series. So the first one is, the first class is really just laying the foundation of Powerful Tools. It's an opportunity to introduce ourselves, who we're caring for, and then they have Powerful Tools has a really good video that actually you all can watch if you go onto their website. It's about 20 minutes, but it gives different scenarios. Like I had said, whether it is a spousal caregiving relationship, caring for a child, caring for an older adult, even a parent. So it gives those different scenarios. So you really, it encapsulates just every possibility, and just talking about caregiving. And like Judy had said, truly identifying that you are a caregiver, you're not just in this other role. And so that video is really helpful, and that's often when the Kleenexes come into play. But we really just lay the foundation of learning about one another and who they are. I often say this is evidence-based. It is not rocket science. However, for the people who are attending, I truly believe that this class gives them permission to say, okay, now I need to start taking care of myself, because maybe that habit hadn't been formed, or maybe they had dropped off those self-care rituals, years ago. And truly having this class really allows them to say, okay, my health is also important. And so we really like to stress that on the first day. And then the last part of each class we actually have is making an action plan. And this is truly where, as Judy said too, eyes are opened of what it's like to have practice self-care from that 1 week. So every week they have to set a goal for themselves of something that they want to do, something that they enjoy, and something solely for themselves. And so it may be increasing your reading, calling a friend, getting a manicure, taking a bath. There's lots of different examples, and the leaders always go first so they can help set the stage of what these small goals are. We don't need them to run a marathon by next week. We want them to walk around the block once, something that they can report back successfully, no matter how small. And truly, those action plans are my absolute favorite because they start enjoying them. They start looking forward to them because it's powerful tools letting them give themselves permission to do something of self-care. And so I truly think that those action plans are vital to the entire series. So the first class is really kind of laying that foundation. The second class is really identifying their stress and then really honing in on what are those signs before they explode. Kind of what are those self signs that they can see that are coming up? What causes them discomfort? And we identify what those are, and then we identify ways to reduce that stress. So if somebody has a lot of physical stress, we share with them that you need physical activity to reduce that stress. If you have a lot of mental stress, I give permission for people to play Sudoku or Word with Friends. They need something to, have some kind of release with that mental stress. So we really just talk about that stress and how it affects our body. And then the use of positive self-talk. Oftentimes it's very common for caregivers to be like, well, they don't acknowledge that they did 47 things in the day, but they will acknowledge the 3 things they didn't get to that day. And it's like, no, like you are doing so much, in one day, caring for yourself as well as caring for somebody else. Let's acknowledge those successes and celebrate those. For caregivers, they will always have a revolving list of things to do. It will never be done. However, we want to look at that as a strength of everything that they're accomplishing and not a negative of what has to be done tomorrow.
Jenny, Carol Y and I have taught this class several times together, and she always calls that "get rid of the stinking thinking." It's so true.
Yeah. And then in this class too, we also do a relaxation exercise for our breath. And we talk about the importance of our breath and how that is truly one thing that we can control, and it can help us when we're in stressful situations. So the third class, we go on to really communicating our needs and getting things done using iMessages. I think we're all from Minnesota, so we're really good at hit and use and being passive aggressive, and that's okay. But we really talk about if you really need something to get done and you can't do it, your I statements are going to be the strongest message in order to get that help. We talk about vulnerability. Nobody likes to be vulnerable. We think we can do it all ourselves, and we can't. And so we talk about building that support team as a strength for you as well as the person you're caring for, and really realizing how important those I messages are. And then what coincides with that are you messages or hidden you messages that can sometimes be disastrous and sometimes we like to bring this up to say, are you really, do you do hidden you messages? And there are several activities that we work through, and then we look back at them and say, were there any hidden you messages in there? And oftentimes there's 1 or 2, so it just helps to bring up that awareness. And then in class 3, we go through, it's about a 9-minute progressive muscle relaxation video at the end of the class. For class 4, we continue on with communication, and we learn 2 different styles, the desk style as well as the Aikido style. And these are 2 often new communication techniques that can work in order to make something happen. And we always kind of have a caveat at the beginning of this class. This is not necessarily how you communicate with the person you're caring for, but yet how you're communicating with others. And that's a really important role. We do certainly talk about using these styles in talking to somebody that you are caring for, but it's most often used for getting help outside in the community. If you're working with a service that you're not happy with, how can we talk about these things and make things happen and move forward to an agreeable goal? And then class 5, often very emotional because we're talking about anger, guilt, and depression. It tends to be my favorite class, but it also tends to be a very difficult class, but a class that I honor because we often don't talk about our emotions. And so this is an opportunity. And this is one of the reasons too why Judy had said that we don't allow individuals, if they haven't attended that first class or second class, we don't let individuals come in, because we have built this foundation and this level of trust and confidentiality, because sometimes it is difficult talking about our emotions, but we do honor them. And then at the end of this class, we do the guided imagery, which these two, the guided imagery and the progressive muscle relaxation, are also online for powerful tools, so you can certainly listen to those if you want. And then our last class, which is fun, we talk about the transition process, having a family meeting if one hasn't been done before, and also just kind of the benefits of having a family meeting. They don't have to be at the time of crisis, they can be before, so kind of lines of communication are open, but sometimes they are done at a time of crisis and when decisions need to be made. And so just kind of giving some ideas of how to have those family meetings, and then resources if you need to have maybe perhaps a facilitator come in and help you with that family meeting. And then our power of optimism, of just staying positive with ourselves, because that is a ripple effect to those that we care about. A lot of what we talk about in each one of these classes is really not just surviving. We don't want caregivers to just get through it. We want them to thrive. We want them to feel good about what they're doing. So much is out of their control with that chronic diagnosis, but we look at the stuff that we have control over. So this 6-week series is really a good opportunity for those caregivers to come together, to learn from one another, and then kind of help to build that confidence that they are really thriving in their role, as well as giving them ongoing resources afterwards. We do have future action plans, which is an action plan 6 months out. And I usually follow up with each participant at 6 months. I write it in my calendar to say, how are things going with this? One, it's a nice opportunity to reconnect. And two, it's nice to hear their successes, or maybe sometimes a roadblock that might have happened, and maybe we can help them continue to reach that goal. And so again, that's a little bit more in depth of those 6-week classes. We have a lot, as Judy had said, a lot of sharing just in a small group, which is really, really helpful. I haven't done it yet there is one activity, and it's called Report Back for Your Partner. So it's kind of one of those listening skills. I'm hearing what Judy is saying, and now instead of Judy reporting back to the group, I'm going to report on her behalf. We haven't done that. We have done that, but we haven't done it in Zoom yet in a breakout session. And so we're kind of modifying some things while we're doing things on Zoom. But we know that those smaller breakout rooms are possible if we want. I know one of my social workers had used a breakout room over Zoom when somebody was emotionally upset. And so, as Judy said, when there's 2 co-leaders, especially over Zoom, which does make it a little bit more difficult, we were able to pause the class, have Sarah go into a small breakout room with that individual, and then they came back when they were ready. And so that worked out fantastic, because during this pandemic, we can't see the people. And so we are constantly brainstorming different ideas and different ways that we can help support the individual, even if it is over Zoom. That is what I have. I can stop my screen share and answer any questions, or we'll open it up to Judy as well if you have any questions about the series.
So I know you mentioned that the requirement is 2 classes in the first year after you're trained. What is it going forward? Is it, in their second, third year? Is it just 1 class a year?
Yes, it is one time after. And oftentimes by that 6-week class, I apologize, to end, really try to say, when do you think you're going to have your first class? Let's plan it now, get it on your calendar, because oftentimes both of the co-leaders are there at the same training. Not always, but oftentimes they are. And so that's a good way to try to assess. I will be very honest, because they give a lot of information in the emails, and sometimes it can be a little, it is overwhelming to kind of get all of these documents and you're like, what am I doing? But they are so specific. And if we just read through them one at a time, but it can be a little intimidating. So we let people know that. And then, and I'm sure as Judy,
I apologize for interrupting, but Jenny is freezing up for me. Is anyone else experiencing that? Okay. Okay. Oh, there, Jenny looks like
I
she's
think I
back.
froze. Yeah.
Yep, you froze a little
Sorry.
bit, but I think we were able to capture what you were trying to say about the emails from Powerful Tools for Caregivers and how those have really good resources and people should digest those slowly and really have a plan for offering classes at the end of the training, and that the master trainers try to emphasize that. Do the master trainers in the leader trainings also talk about like having Kleenexes and these fidget items, and how is that translated into the virtual space as you've been offering virtual classes?
Yeah, so I'll take this, Judy, and you can fill in if you want. But Powerful Tools lists everything that you might need for each class. And so they have a checkoff list. Do you have Kleenexes? Do you have markers? Do you have, and so you simply, the book itself it's word for word what needs to be happening for that class. So you are always prepared as long as you look at those checkoff lists. And then in Zoom, they do have a training. I know they had a training last year, and we went through, options of using the breakout rooms. Now, these things are valuable to have, potentially send items out, to people, because you're sending those information. So they do walk you through that class as well, online as well as in person. Judy, do you have anything else to add?
No, I know in the in-person, I said they're very good in listing out what you need, and we go over, because a lot of times when we're training, somebody else will have another idea and we'll jot it down in our book, and you pick up as you train leaders, you actually learn from them too, because they have ideas. And my book has got stuff written all over it, because it's like, oh, that's a good idea, and you write that type of thing down. So yeah.
So for the online version, I'm guessing there's the use of PowerPoints. Is there also the use of PowerPoints in in-person classes, or is it only online?
No,
Yes.
you can do them. Yeah, you can do, I'm sorry, Jenny. You can do PowerPoint, or you can do just old fashioned paper and pen too, with the flip charts. They give you that option to use either way. And when you do a leader training, you actually do one day using the flip charts to demonstrate that. And then the next day you use just PowerPoint to demonstrate that, so that they can choose, because not all places have access to a screen where you can do a PowerPoint and that type of thing. So it's good to have the other as well.
And if I'm curious about the kind of recertification process. So sometimes we'll have leaders in other programs where they fall out of Fidelity because they didn't offer trainings one year, so then they have to go through a retraining process. Sometimes they can go through a refresh process. So what's the process of getting someone who hasn't offered as many classes as they were supposed to initially back up to speed?
Powerful Tools just started this. Before, they did not have any type of you had to teach this many classes. They just started that like 2, maybe 3 years ago, Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
To where I think The one is just a refresher training with the leader, master trainer, right? And then there's also one where you contact them to see what you need to do to get recertified.
Yeah. They are very flexible in working with individuals who have been trainers and maybe had let it go and want to come back. So they definitely will work with you.
Yeah, they're very good to work with.
And I don't know, Judy, if you saw today, but Powerful Tools is now going to switch. They are transitioning over to Iowa State University. It just happened this morning.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So they're going to go under the Iowa State University umbrella.
Oh, so instead of being a standalone now, they're going to go. Okay,
yeah.
All right.
And I think if memory serves me correct, I think they started off in Illinois University and then became their own nonprofit, and they're out in Oregon, and I think for several years, and now they're transitioning this year to next year to Iowa State University.
Okay, good.
It just came out this morning.
So I'm one of the wellness engagement specialists. I talk on the phone with people who call in regarding if they want to get registered for classes and stuff like that. So I just wanted to make sure I have a good concept. Who would you say is your population? So like who would fit well in one of these classes that would be qualified as a caregiver?
I've seen all ages, all, we have found that churches often know who needs a, talk to your caregiver counselors, consultants. They have people in their support groups. They'll promote it in their support groups. Sometimes people think because they're in a support group that they don't need to have powerful tools because they're getting everything that they need from that support group, which, I mean, you get great valuable information from the support group, but oftentimes there's little additional tidbits that we can give them through powerful tools. But we work with our caregiver consultants. I said churches are really good because they know who in their congregation. Who else, Jenny, have you?
Yeah, I think if they are calling you, and asking you questions, it's more if you hear, my husband has a chronic diagnosis, or I'm really stressed out about my adult son living in a group home. If you hear them identifying that they're worried about somebody else, or I want to get them involved in this exercise class. I don't need it, but they do. You could say, hey, it sounds like you might be in a caregiving role. You may appreciate powerful tools. It's an opportunity for you to learn new skills. And I think Judy was spot on when she said, people might think, I don't need this. And I said, it's not rocket science, but this class allows caregivers to actually start realizing that they need to care for themselves. That's really the greatest benefit that I see, that somebody is giving them permission to say, it's okay, you don't have to do everything, and you need to start caring for yourself.
And it's an eye opener. A few years back, I was thrown into a caregiver role, and it was I should have known because I was teaching powerful tools, and it was hard. I had friends that said, Judy, what would you tell someone else? And it's hard. So I mean, I get how they don't see it. You get so wrapped up in your caregiving role, and it doubles if it's someone with dementia. There's those types of things. And so yeah, it's hard to identify. Because I said I didn't even think about it. I was like, you just got to do what you got to do until someone brings that out and says, hey, you know what, when was the last time you did something for you? It's okay to do something for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're actually helping the person you're caring for. Because if you're worn out, stressed, and crabby, you're not helping them. But if you're rested and you're taking care of yourself, you're helping them. So yeah.
Sure. Thank you. And do you guys have any advice on if I needed to give a very short, brief description of the powerful tools? Is there like 3 main things that you would want us to make sure we say about the class to get them engaged? So like what comes from the class, what will you get if you enter the class, that kind of stuff.
What comes off my mind right away is this is an opportunity for you to go to a class where people already understand where you're at. Because oftentimes in caregiving roles, like you have to constantly explain yourself. But like that's the neat thing about the first class of laying the foundation. Everybody who is attending already gets the stress that that you may be potentially, living because they're all in that caregiving role. And so it's that opportunity that you don't have to explain yourself, but you can confidentially complain, verbal vomit, and people will understand right away, which is really a neat and they connect right away with the leaders, with the other attendees. And oftentimes it is not a support group because we stay focused because it's evidence-based, but we see that it's a network of an opportunity to connect with others in the future, like staying connected with these people because you've been with them for 6 weeks, to like, hey, this is kind of a new support group for you, or at least a resource that you can call these other people if they feel comfortable sharing that information, which they often do at the end of the 6-week series.
We've actually had support groups grow out of a Powerful
Yes.
Tools class. And I really recommend that. So Powerful Tools has I think it's a 90-minute like preview class that you can teach to do. So let's say if you have a group of people who don't really know who they're going, if they're interested, you can put on this 90-minute thing. I think it's real important if you're going to be talking to folks and you're going to be pushing this, it would be awesome if you guys attended a class or even that 90-minute overview, just to kind of give you that idea of this is how the class is structured, this is how it works, and that type of thing. So I would encourage you to look at that as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. 43 minutes, Jenny. We were about right.
Yeah.
You were on point. I have one more question. Honestly, two more questions. So, but have the virtual classes changed at all? What it's the experience for recruiting for Powerful Tools? Has that made it easier to recruit more people because it can be virtual, or has that made it harder, or has it really not made a difference?
Go ahead, Jenny.
For me, we have still, I'm doing a class the end of March, and I had a new referral from Washington County. And so maybe the access of sharing those classes has been better. I know for our class leader training, the 2-day training, we did have people up in northern Minnesota, and they loved the opportunity that they didn't have to travel down for the training. So our classes were well set in 2020, so kind of going into 2021 we'll see. But yeah, I think the ability to not have to travel is a huge opportunity for caregivers.
We don't provide classes for caregivers ourselves, just at the AAA level, but our providers we have a couple providers who have done virtual classes, and they've had fairly good attendance. So I said, the whole Zoom thing has really opened it up, because I know when we were doing it in person, Amy and I actually had a gal fly from Washington State to take the class because she wanted to become a leader. And when she sent me the thing, I was like, I'd love to have you, but you realize I'm in Minnesota, right? And she's like, oh, she flew into Fargo and drove over to, it was crazy, but she wanted to get going. And so it worked out well. So yeah, Zoom is huge, saving money.
Mm-hmm. And I know we've heard from the caregivers too, that it allows them the opportunity to not have to set up additional respite, especially during the pandemic, that they can try to keep the person they're caring for occupied for those 90 minutes. And we really offer a lot of flexibility. Like if you have to go do something, do it. We totally understand. And so there's a little bit less stress, I think, when it can be done over Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
there is an element that I miss not seeing people in the room. I mean, we all miss that. And so that definitely changes. So it really is important to have the two leaders really be aware of what they can see on the screen. I think there's probably more emails going back and forth with the participants too, maybe in between classes, maybe a little bit more just, you know, I want to clarify this, or I have a question about this, I was thinking about this, which is also good too.
And is it possible for powerful tools to be offered over the phone for those that don't have a device or internet, or is it a strictly virtual or in-person implementation?
I suppose you could do over the phone. They wouldn't get the same effect of seeing any PowerPoint slides or brainstorm sessions. I think it might be hard over the phone because you want to be able to see their face.
Mm-hmm.
To keep that pulse of the class. I mean, I guess I would discourage that myself, but if that was the only way that person could join the class and you knew that they were in need, I probably would allow it.
Yeah, I would probably work with them and have to send them the PowerPoint presentation. You know, it would take a little bit more work. But if they could at least maybe come to one Zoom meeting or in-person meeting, just to develop that relationship with the rest of the group would be really helpful, but also understanding that sometimes that's not possible. So I would brainstorm and see how we could work with that person.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Judy or Jenny about powerful tools?
I'm just curious how frequently the curriculum updates, if they release new curriculum every couple years, or if it's been pretty stable over the years.
Well, they did do an adjustment with Zoom, so there's like a different package to kind of, or different book to follow. But what they also do, maybe every 2 years.
That's what I was going to say, every 2 to 3 years, maybe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then they'll also send you, they kind of keep a working document of updates, of minor updates, like on page 3, take this word out, or, you know, so they do have kind of an updated list that sometimes I forget to look at.
And that's kind of nice though, because then you don't have to reprint the whole thing. You can go into your manual and just cross it off or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
They are very organized.
Yeah, they are.
And detailed.
So I want to acknowledge we got a comment from Jill that she has taught the 90-minute, the info session, I think was the correct term, or preview class, and that to senior care providers in her area, and that it helped them in understanding the class and getting a lot of referrals.
It really does, because I think once you understand what the class has to offer, it helps you identify people that would fit, you know, that type of thing. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes the caregivers who take the class at the end, I always have my next class dated, you know, and I always give them a flyer and say, you know, people, pass this flyer out to somebody that you see that you think could benefit too.
Yep.
I'm sorry if this was already asked, but are there materials that like the participants need to purchase, or
each
yeah,
participant
do they need
has to have access to a caregiver handbook. If you can't give them one, I've had providers who have loaned them out. I've had providers get sponsors. Like they held a class at a church one time, and the church said, well, we would buy 5 books for 5 of the participants, you know, as like a scholarship type deal. So yeah. So, but they have to have that is one of the requirements, that they must be given access to that caregiver handbook during the 6 weeks. But there's multiple ways you can get it to them.
Yeah. And then each week we have a series of handouts that we pass out to each participant that goes along with the class. Whether it's a worksheet or just kind of the summary of some of the PowerPoints, but that's also good information for them to have.
It is, yeah.
Do you know if there's an audiobook version of the caregiver handbook for folks who may be vision impaired?
I don't believe they have one.
I don't believe so either, no. Mm-mm. That's a good point, though. I've never, yeah. I mean, they have it in like 3 or 4 different languages, but I've never heard of a talk of an audio book, but that's something good to bring up.
I think that's a brilliant question, Krista. And I also know that the Minnesota, Services for the Blind will oftentimes do that, make a audio recording if there is a request for that. So maybe that's something worth looking into, because it's a great question.
It is.
Yeah, Jen and Krista, I just was chatting with someone yesterday, and I think it was from the Lighthouse Vision in Duluth, but all they would need is a PDF version, and they can put that into an audio for them.
Yeah, now that their book is downloadable, that would be very doable.
Mm-hmm.
I also think, along with your question, Krista, about the people who are visually impaired, also people who just don't have time to stop and read, right? I think a lot of people like listening while they're tasking, right? And I think that's a big caregiver skill, to learn how to do a couple of things at once. So I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I think I had one individual attend my class who was like, I can't read anything under a 36 font. I'm like, okay. So the materials, because they're emailed, I was able to adjust them, to 40, and he was super happy too. So there's we have some ability with some of the font, but yeah, the reading would be fantastic.
All right. Well, thank you again, Jenny and Judy, for being willing to share powerful tools with us. I really appreciate it. It's just so helpful for myself as someone who's not familiar with the program to understand I used this word before, but like the heart of it and what it really means to people, because that speaks loads more than the nuts and bolts, how many times in a week, how long, that kind of information. So thank you so much. I think we'll go ahead and transition to the Juniper piece. And so we can share with the master trainers on the call more about what Juniper is if they are unfamiliar, and what it can offer, powerful tools for caregivers, providers, if they choose to be part of the network. So I'm going to go ahead and get my screen situated here. Always takes an extra minute now that I have Zoom and multiple screens and all the things. So just want to confirm that you can see the teal blue Juniper slide. Okay, wonderful. So we are very excited to be able to offer to powerful tools for caregivers, providers in the year 2021, the opportunity to be part of the Juniper network and to use Juniper as a resource in supporting them and offering their classes. And so first want to take some time just to refresh on what Juniper is and how we support our providers in implementing their programs. Juniper is a network of community-based organizations, healthcare systems, and area agencies on aging working together to enhance the health and well-being of older adults in Minnesota through evidence-based classes. Currently, we offer, I lose count, I know it's over 10 evidence-based programs across the state of Minnesota that cover topics like self-management of chronic conditions, exercise, and falls prevention. So powerful tools for caregivers is going to be a great addition because it is a category of program that we don't have currently. So by operating as a statewide network, we are able to centralize administrative responsibilities in an entity called Innovations for Aging. That is a nonprofit subsidiary of MAAA. So Innovations for Aging takes the administrative burden of managing the yourjuniper.org website, marketing the statewide network, managing referrals that the Wellness Engagement Center responds to, and acting as a central contract point for funders as well as providers to connect the two. The most important tool that we have as a network, in my opinion, is yourjuniper.org, our platform. And this platform allows providers to schedule their classes, manage their registration, track attendance. We have a participant portal where participants can enter their pre and post-class surveys, so we can also analyze those class outcomes. Yourjuniper.org is able to generate detailed reports for us on demographic and class outcome information. There's also a referral mechanism on yourjuniper.org. You can see that up here in the Make a Referral tab, where healthcare providers, care coordinators, concerned family members and friends can make referrals for Juniper classes, and the Wellness Engagement Center follows up with those referrals and talks with the individual and helps them identify what Juniper class might be the best fit for them. Juniper has been around since 2016, but our website was active in 2018. So since 2018, pulling data from yourjuniper.org, we have served almost 12,000 Minnesotans across the state of Minnesota through over 1,300 classes. And because we collect registration information with demographics and pre and post survey information, we are able to understand not only who we're serving, but also the impact of the classes. So what is the effectiveness of our falls prevention classes? How much do they reduce a person's chance of worrying about a fall or feeling confident that they can prevent a fall? And this information is not only interesting and helpful, it's also really important as Juniper as a network seeks additional funding to help sustain and support this work. And it's also very helpful for Juniper providers for their annual reports, for reporting to their leaders on the impact of their work, and also for applying for additional grants to expand their services. Being part of Juniper as a provider has benefits and, of course, responsibilities. Benefits include if there is a license to offer a program, Innovations for Aging helps to offset that cost. We also have funds to pay organizations for offering classes. Juniper pays on a per completer basis. A completer is anyone who attends 2/3 of a class. So for powerful tools, that would be 4 of the 6 sessions. And that reimbursement has a fairly quick turnaround. So within 2 weeks of an organization requesting payment, they receive the check. And organizations will request payment within 14 days of the class ending. Of course, access to yourjuniper.org to schedule classes, manage registration, market the class, all those nice things. As a statewide network, we work hard together to market all Juniper classes and enhance awareness of what Juniper is, the importance of these classes, and the wonderful providers that are offering them. We have reports we can generate on program outcomes for the individual providers. We also have a really amazing provider toolkit that has a ton of resources for organizations when it comes to implementing classes as part of Juniper. So it includes resources on using yourjuniper.org, resources on using the participant portal, class materials, of course, and the nuts and bolts of classes in case they should forget, and information on supporting and training leaders, implementing classes, how to implement a virtual class, how to implement a telephone class if that's allowable. We create all of those for organizations. Juniper also works hard to generate health plan and health system referrals. So that's another benefit is as those referrals come in, the Wellness Engagement Center connects those individuals to classes in their community that are coming up that meet the interest of the person. And so having those referrals is another resource to help increase class participation or registration. Responsibilities include recruiting and supporting class leaders, scheduling classes 60 days before the start date, marketing classes co-branded with Juniper to assist in enhancing awareness of what Juniper is in Minnesota, Of course, following class fidelity, that's a very important item in the evidence-based world. Gathering registration, pre and post class data from participants, ensuring that that's gathered and making sure it's entered into yourjuniper.org and the class is completed within 14 days of the class ending. Another important benefit of being a Juniper provider is, of course, our team. So the team didn't know I was going to share these photos, so surprise everyone. But we have a really strong team of provider relationship managers that work directly with providers, supporting them in implementing these classes. So we're a resource for questions about how do I do this on yourjuniper.org again, or contract questions, program questions. Maybe organizations are thinking about adding new programs. So we're a resource for all of those questions. And I also wanted to take a moment just to demonstrate yourjuniper.org and what it's able to do in case you haven't seen it before in its functionality. So just a moment while I transition which screen I'm sharing. So the Powerful Tools for Caregivers program will be live on yourjuniper.org. The plan is in mid to late April. And when it is live, the survey we will be using is the post survey that Powerful Tools for Caregivers providers are accustomed to using for their classes. So you've probably seen this form before. It's the same set of questions. And by having participants put this information directly into yourjuniper.org through the portal, or having providers and class leaders collect the information in a paper format and enter it into yourjuniper.org, it makes it really easy to generate a report and be able to analyze the amazing outcomes of the class and help tell the story of the importance of these classes. All right, so first, yourjuniper.org from a provider or class leader perspective. So this is the public face of the website where any community member can come and search for a specific class. If they want to find an in-person class, they can enter a zip code. Online, they check the online box. But for a provider or class leader, oftentimes we interact more with the back end of yourjuniper.org. So I'm just going to go ahead and log into the back end. And to answer Sarah Shepard's question, I understand that Powerful Tools only has a post survey and there is not a pre-survey. Okay. All right. And so I'm just going to quickly log into the website. I thought I was logged in, but it timed out. All right, so here is yourjuniper.org on the back end. So as a provider organization, we always land on the classes tab. So I can first see all of the classes that I have offered or have scheduled to offer in the future. And to add another class, I scroll to the bottom and look for this Add a Class button. And then I fill out all the fields related to my class. So this is not a training, it's a regular class. So I want to make sure it's regular is selected. I find the provider organization, the program, so we'll just do Living Well with Chronic Conditions. The class leader, I'm going to use Carol, and Dwight Schrute for the Office fans. The cost, this class is going to be free, and the maximum is 12. And under the location, this will be an online class, so I can select online, and then a field populates for me to insert the class link. This is really helpful because when participants register, they do get an automatic email with this class link, so they have it. But of course, leaders will also email the participants closer to the class start date, so they have it again. So I'm just going to make up a Zoom link. And then the registration contact, everyone's going to contact Dwight if they want to register for this class. phone number is not required, but always a good idea to provide. And then when will the class meet? This class will meet on Tuesdays, 9 a.m. How many times will the class meet? Living Well with Chronic Conditions meets for 6 sessions. How long is each session? 2.5 hours. When will the class start? I look for 2 months out, 60 days out. And this will start on the 4th. And then I click Generate Schedule. And so this will populate all the dates that the class will meet. I would quickly review this to make sure that the dates are what I want them to be, make sure there aren't any vacations. And well, we know Carol's going to be off on June 1st, so we're going to remove that session and just add another session later in June. And then here in the class notes, I can add anything important for the class that I might want to share. So for virtual classes, we've been inserting notes about an info session about Zoom, so a pre-session before the class starts to get participants comfortable with Zoom. We might also include information about when participants can expect materials, etc., anything that the organization might want to share. And then when I have all my information as I want it to be, I select Create. And it has been scheduled. And here it is, Living Well with Chronic Conditions with Healthy All the Time. That is my class. So now I can click View and see all my class details again. If I need to make changes, I can edit and make changes. Like maybe we need to change the dates. Carol changed her mind about that vacation the first week of June, so we want to add that session back in as an example. Class leaders, the session schedule, and then here's where the participant roster would appear. So if participants register themselves through yourjuniper.org, they would appear down here below on my participant roster. If someone calls me to register over the phone, or in this case actually calls Dwight because he's the contact person, I can register them as a new participant by clicking this button. Or if they've already taken a class with me, I can click Register an Existing Participant. So I'm just going to demo that quickly. So register an existing participant, and we're going to register Coco Chanel. She is very excited about this class. I would confirm with Coco that this is her correct information still, and then register her for this class. And now Coco will appear under my participant list. And under Coco's account here, if I click on her participant ID, I'm taken to the page where I can see her pre-survey responses, her post-survey responses, and I can track her attendance for the class. And if I was editing this information, I would of course click update so that it would save in the site. Now, in the historically, it's been the provider and class leaders that have collected paper forms or collected surveys through the JOT form and manually entered the pre and post survey information into yourjuniper.org after a class ended. But we recently launched something called the Participant Portal, and this is a resource for participants to log into yourjuniper.org and actually complete those forms themselves. So it will hopefully be a really big time saver for the providers and leaders and helpful for the participants. So I'm just going to switch to this other tab. So this is an example of the Participant Portal. So here I'm logged in as Madeline Chisel, who is a participant, and you can see she's logged in here at the top. That's how I know. And here are her current classes and also the past classes that she's already completed. So as I'm logged in with as Madeline, I can edit the profile. So if I, as Madeline, have any information that's changed, maybe my address, which is important so that the organization offering the class can send information to me to the right location, or it might be my health insurance information, which is also important, emergency contact, etc. I can edit that information at any time when registering for a class. And every time someone registers for a class when they're logged in, they will be prompted to edit that information. Because I'm on the demo site, this is taking a long time to load, so I apologize for that. Oh, and then we've actually logged out Madeline. That's probably what happened. So I will just log in again. All right, here we go. Edit profile. So here is the Madeline's profile that she can choose to edit in any way that she needs to. Maybe she wants to add her healthcare system. She doctors at Alina. Then she would click save. All right, and then Madeline has a stepping on class coming up. So as the date gets closer for this stepping on class, she might want to check the class details, which will include information about her leader contact as well as the class location. So here is her leader's contact information. Her leader's Brenda, and this is her email and phone number in case Madeline needs to get in touch with her. And there's also the class location. If this was an online class, it would say online with the appropriate link instead. And Madeline can also click on the pre-class survey and complete her pre-survey form. So first is the liability agreement, and then the same survey questions. Madeline already filled this out. She's ahead of the game. The class isn't until May, but she's already filled this out with all of her responses. If she made any changes, she can do so, and then select submit. Oops, we didn't agree to the privacy terms or waiver of liability. That's important. And when the class is ending, Madeline will do the same thing for the post-class survey. Her class isn't over yet, so I'm not going to make any changes there. And if Madeline wanted to register for another class, she can go to the top, find a class, and then see what classes are coming up. It's only the stepping on class, but if there was another class or she wanted to register for a second class, she would just click this register button. And instead of taking her to a form where she has to fill out all of her registration information again, because she's already logged in, it populates for her. So it makes it very easy for her to register for multiple classes. All right, so that is a little bit about Juniper and our website. So I am going to stop sharing. Any questions about Juniper and what we can do to help support organizations as they're implementing powerful tools? What we've heard from some powerful tools providers is that marketing classes and managing registration has been difficult. So we're hopeful that Juniper will be a great resource for them in fixing or addressing those two challenges. And again, we're expecting to go live with powerful tools on our website in late April, but we wanted to share with the master trainers before that so that you were aware of what Juniper is. So as you're working with organizations, if they are looking for resources to help fund their classes or help them with scheduling, registration, all the above, that is something that Juniper can assist with.
Hi, Rachel and everyone. I know there was a question that came a little bit ago, wondering if Juniper is going to reimburse powerful tools for caregiver providers of completers.
Yes, so Juniper will be reimbursing powerful tools for caregivers providers through our grant that currently funds Juniper. So that's reimbursable at $110. That rate is $110 per completer. Powerful Tools for Caregivers is not currently included on the 2 health plan contracts that Juniper holds. That's something that we would like to do, but not at this time. And so we cannot reimburse for any Blue Cross Blue Shield or MSHO health plan completers at the health plan rate, those would still be counted as completers, and we can reimburse at the $110 completer rate.
So Rachel, can you talk about, I know different providers charge different rates for the class. Are you saying that then they have to be streamlined all the same for Juniper?
Our Juniper providers determine what they want their class fees to be. So we have some providers where their classes are always free. Some providers will charge a sliding fee scale because they're required to from some other funding that they have. Some will charge $20 for class to, as you said before, cover the cost of the book. So it varies quite a bit. Juniper does not set those fees. One limitation that we have on that is for health plan members with which Juniper has a contract and the provider will be reimbursed for that person attending. We cannot charge a person a fee for a class in that instance. But because Powerful Tools for Caregivers is not included on the contracts with health plans, that wouldn't be a limitation for charging fees or who to charge a fee to. So, in long answer, but in summary, organizations would still choose what they want to charge for their class fees for Powerful Tools.
Holly, I have a question. So if we're already connected with Juniper for another evidence-based class, do we have to fill out like all the paperwork and licensure again for PTC in addition to AMP, or is it like, oh, we're already registered agency with you guys and we can offer as many workshops as we want?
Thank you for that question, Holly. Yes, if you are an organization that's already part of the Juniper network, have been offering Powerful Tools for Caregivers and would like to include that in your Juniper offerings, you can do that. What we would need to do is a contract amendment to include Powerful Tools for Caregivers on the contract. And depending on your class plans, with that amendment, we might want to include more grant completers. And then, of course, adding Powerful Tools for Caregivers to your provider profile in your juniper.org and making sure all of your leaders are registered as well in your juniper.org. And those are steps that your provider relationship manager could help walk you through as well. Great questions. And I don't think you're the only organization in that position either. I think there's quite a few. All right, any other questions or ponderings for either myself or for Judy and Jenny if we have extra time, if we do have more questions about Powerful Tools?
So, hi. When can we register as a Powerful Tools provider through Juniper?
That will be when Powerful Tools for Caregivers is live on your juniper.org, which will happen in mid to late April. And we're planning to send out a big announcement to that when that happens, and we'll definitely include the master trainers in that announcement so that you are aware. Thank you for the question. Yeah. I know I had another question for just the Powerful Tools Master Trainers, and we've experienced with virtual Juniper classes, people from other states signing up to participate in virtual classes. Have you experienced that as well, and how have you handled that?
I can say at this time, we've only done 2 classes over Zoom, and they've all been here in Minnesota. Like I said, we have one coming in, starting again later this month, but so far those are Minnesota residents as well.
I guess if I'm a provider putting on a class over Zoom, I could see where we could end up with what we call the California daughter, who's a caregiver for mom who lives in Minnesota, you know, that type of thing. So, I mean, I could see where that could open up a whole new thing, because just because they don't live here doesn't mean they don't have caregiving responsibilities and pressures. So I could look at it as a plus on that side, but I do grants management for Title III. So for Title III, I would say the care receiver has to live in our area type thing.
Mm-hmm. That's helpful to know. I know for Juniper, we've been experiencing this, and working with our funders and the program licensors, we've been able to determine that if the class participant lives in Minnesota or within 60 miles of the Minnesota border, then we can serve them in a virtual class, because in theory, they might drive to Minnesota for healthcare services. So that's a helpful, yeah, that's good to understand what you've been experiencing too. All right, any final questions, comments, or emotional outbursts before we wrap up our time together today?
I guess my outburst would be, wow, this was so interesting. It was really, really good. As usual, Rachel, I think you just always are the best facilitator ever. Judy and Jenny, I would sign up for anything you're teaching or part of. You just seem incredible. So I enjoyed this to no end. So thank you.
Yes, I want to echo Jen. Thank you so much, Judy and Jenny, for stepping in to teach us about powerful tools. It's so helpful to hear from people with the depth of experience in the program that you have. So thank you for giving your time to us this morning / afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, I'll give you back the gift of 8 minutes. Everyone have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to sharing more developments with you as we roll out powerful tools on the Juniper platform.
Thank you, Rachel.
Bye, everyone.